All right, I guess we will call the meeting to order at 6:04. 2.0 adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments?
Executive session for personnel, it's germane to the budget discussion, and a public discussion could have an adverse effect on someone's employability, so it can't be discussed in public.
Okay, and where do you think that needs to go on the agenda?
Well, technically, it will be very, very brief. Technically, it should probably be during discussion matters.
Okay, do you know how we should do that, Sandy?
Yes, you entertain a motion to go in executive session to discuss personnel matters. You vote to go into executive session, you then go into
Okay,
executive session.
and we can wait till when we're in the middle of discussion matters to do that?
That doesn't, I think
Okay.
the understanding is you want to do it at the front end of the agenda rather than the back end.
Okay,
So, that's how you do it.
thank you. Any other adjustments? 3.0 audience and communication. Brett, Dorothy, or you want to say anything? Thank you for coming. We think, for some reason, this budget hearing one has been at 6 instead of 6:30, and I've been trying to really say it at every meeting, but it could be that didn't. And Bob and I were discussing that maybe it would make sense to not keep this historical sort of artifact, and we can think about next year trying to do a 6:30, which is a more normal time. Okay, 4.0 discussion matters, 4.1 budget overview of proposed budget fiscal year 15. And did you want to go now in, or you want to start?
Let's do it. It'll take about 2
Okay,
minutes.
are you moving to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't- Do we have to announce no decision was made? Okay, we're out of executive session. All right, so back to budget overview of proposed budget fiscal year 15.
The first page in the material you've got is the budget change sheet incorporating what was on the budget change sheet the last time you met, and then all the additions based on conversations you had at your last meeting. Greg, Audrey, Mike, and I have tabulated it all into a change sheet you see here, including the Medicaid impact to the changes that you were asking for. So are there any questions on what you see on that change sheet? It should reconcile with the conversation you had last time. There shouldn't be any surprises there. We didn't insert anything at our own discretion. Okay?
Yes, it just has nothing to do with the next page, right?
The next page is, the only thing that changed on the revenue page from the last time you saw it till now, which is the next page, excuse me. The object and function are revamped to reflect all of these added to it. So this is the object and function budget that you'll see in your annual report outlining the budget you've approved. So all it is Mike takes the changes, loads them to the account numbers listed, and then reruns the function and object budget. Okay?
In other words, the numbers don't actually
Bless
count,
you.
right? I mean,
Yes, there shouldn't be anything on, if you line this function or this object budget up with the baseline that you got when the process started, the only things that should have changed are things on this sheet of paper.
So the adjusted baseline on the change worksheet is the same as the second, or the 2015 proposed budget, general fund at the bottom.
I mean, if I look at the column that says adjusted versus proposed,
Yes.
those changes would,
Oh, those changes are whatever was in that adjusted versus proposed column on the baseline document, then changed by anything you put on this change sheet. They aren't just the change sheet numbers. So, for example, the salaries and benefits had in it when we began with the baseline assumptions that you all outlined. We've only made changes to that if we've done something here.
Are you,
Okay,
so the healthcare premium
yes,
adjustment that's at the bottom of the page,
yes.
is that an adjustment that reflects the fact that the actual premium came in lower than we expected? Or was that money that was actually in the budget that doesn't have to be in the budget? Is that question clear? No.
Yeah, let me outline it in terms of the baseline document you had before. The first baseline document for the object budget would have had the very high number relative to healthcare added in that column.
Okay.
So with this change sheet, that should have come down, that difference between budgeting 15% and budgeting 5%.
Okay, and so the final part of that question is, I should know, but I don't. How much was actually in the budget last year for healthcare?
I think, don't quote me on this, because I have difficulty keeping 7 budgets / 2 years straight, but my guess is last year, you all started at about the same starting point, 15%. And when Visbit finished with their process, my memory is we landed closer to 9
And
for
that happened
healthcare.
later in the year last year.
Yes, and it happened much later than here. It actually happened in, close to town meeting day, when we finally wrapped it up. Okay?
Yeah, so the only reason I remember is because after the budget got voted down is when that number got
oh,
reduced.
That's
right.
exactly when you
Right.
adjusted it. Last year, Visbit had a great deal of trouble navigating the process of 2 people chiming in on rate approval, or 2 groups, versus the one they were used to, and the process got somewhat convoluted, and they did a whole lot better job this year working, or navigating that journey for you. So that's the function and object. The next page is the revenue estimate, updated with the Medicaid changes we made at the bottom, based on a conversation you had with Greg and Audrey relative to the application of Medicaid funds to this budget. Okay?
Anyone from the board, I know Dorothy has questions, does anyone from the board have a question on that? Yes, Dorothy. Can you just state your name for RETN?
Yes, Dorothy Pellet. Would you explain why the .6 FTE reading teacher is, how that's related to Medicaid, which is on the line underneath it, on the change sheet? Why does it say Medicaid?
Yes, and Bob, you do such a great job describing that. Do you want to explain that?
Okay, I'll start at the beginning with Medicaid. The school provides services under the Medicaid umbrella to children, and as a result of doing that, earns credits in the form of Medicaid earnings that the federal government returns to the school on a semi-annual basis. They're able to deposit that money on account and then use it within the rules of the Medicaid program for expenditures within the school. The general rules of how they use that, they can't supplant, i.e. they can't replace the expense of a classroom teacher directly that used to be funded in the general fund with Medicaid money, but they can, they have pretty wide discretion after that rule. It has to be somewhat targeted to the same population of kids that they earned the Medicaid credits on. They have an account independent of the general fund that has those deposits in it, and then they periodically decide how to invest that back in the school. In this budget on the revenue page, it says they're going to invest next year's budget, $54,222 out of the Medicaid fund into the school. And they're going to use it principally to support the .6 FTE new reading teacher. Have I described that correctly? So that's why it shows up on the top form, it shows up as an expense addition to the budget in the form of a $51,000 addition. And then in the bottom, in revenue, it shows the additional $51,000 in Medicaid revenue to cover it. Okay?
Are there other questions on the revenue page?
Okay, the last sheet in this series of papers is the 3-year prior comparison of budgets and tax rates required by the Vermont Agency of Education to be inserted in your annual report. I've used that document here rather than the one you got used to the quicker sheet that I just tabulate the numbers on. And then I've put the percentages out in the far right-hand side of the page expecting someone would want to know those rather quickly after I gave you the sheet of paper. Questions on a 3-year comparison tax rate? That's a budget overview.
All right, 5.0, action matters. 5.1, adopt fiscal year 15 proposed budget. Do I have a motion to approve the budget? And do we have to say the amount? In the amount of $7,511,544?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Am I going to change anybody's mind? I guess not.
What are you
On
gonna say?
what?
On whether we should present this budget to the public. Very briefly, last week I specifically explained what I was in favor of and against. In total, I'm opposed to the budget for a variety of reasons. We continue to discuss budget changes in terms of percents, which is an expensive way to disconnect from reality, even allowing for inflation. When I began, a percent was $22,000. Now it's 75. We've had people comment repeatedly their house has not increased in value by 3 times, so on and so forth. I mean, you've heard all these arguments. This whole process, local boards, administration, local and district, legislature, governor, the whole thing is completely disjointed. The net result of that is approaching chaos. As I've said before, there's a lot that we're not in charge of. The part that we are in charge of, in my opinion, we're not exercising, I guess, what lawyers would call due diligence. So for a whole bunch of reasons, which I don't need to reiterate, I'll be voting against this budget.
Anyone else? Bob, I should have asked you this ahead of time, but to the extent I derive some income from Visbit, do I need to do any specific recusal on part of the budget?
Wow. Without more of a discussion on details, the safe thing is just to recuse yourself when you vote.
Okay. So I derive income, or I will derive income from the Vermont School Boards Insurance Trust, which is something that part of our budget pays for those premiums.
The best advice you'd get from a lawyer, not from me, I am not a lawyer, but the safe advice I'd give her would just be to recuse herself from the actual vote. With that, now you're all knowledgeable of the conflict, if there is one, and then between now and whenever I can get in touch with your legal counsel, we'll get a clearer answer.
Okay. I apologize. I did send an email to Bob and Elaine a while ago, but they're very swamped with Cindy, and I didn't think to follow up about the mechanics of that. So I guess I'm recusing myself from voting on the budget. All right.
So just to be clear, I mean, I brought this up and recused myself from the para piece. It ended up making its way into the budget. I mean, is that an issue? I think people traditionally recuse themselves from direct impact on negotiations if they have a spouse in a salaried role. But I mean, is that?
Wait a minute. Is there a possibility that you two have to recuse yourself?
We'll let you decide this.
I think you're not supposed to vote on negotiations.
Right.
But your recusal the other day, I think, was an overabundance of caution. It didn't have a direct impact on your family or your income.
Okay.
All right. So, all those in favor of the budget as proposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm abstaining. And I'll look into that myself, Bob. You don't have to, you have enough on your plate. 5.2, adopt annual warning and articles. Do I have a motion to adopt the amended annual warning and articles? Any discussion? The change, if you looked at it before, originally it said that it appeared that we were having Australian ballot Monday, but our meeting is Monday night, but people will vote on the actual budget Australian ballot Tuesday.
Just to avoid confusion, I voted against the budget. I'll be voting for this. This is just to present the budget
Correct.
to the public.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5.3, approve announced tuition. Do I have a motion to approve tuition in the amount of $14,581?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, 6.0, discussion matter, 6.1, annual meeting and budget vote preparation. Does anyone want to be in charge? Tammy forwarded me the slideshow from last year. Oh, sorry, I need to sign this. That's a good starting point. And if anyone else wants to see what we did last year, it needs some tweaking, of course, because some things have changed. But if anyone wants to do something different, or does anyone want to do something different or do something?
Can I at least see the PowerPoint from last year?
Yes.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
I'll take a look at it.
I'll forward it to everybody when I get home tonight, and if people have a better idea of how to do it, that would be great.
Tammy's version would have changed the dates. I think to bring them up to date, so it looks like this year's presentation. She might not have changed any of the numbers.
She did not change
Yeah,
any of the
so,
numbers, no.
so
I
then
know,
the
you guys are
next
smart.
step would be for me to change all the numbers based on this meeting being done, and then to begin to change anything that comes from you five. But I just wanted you to understand it isn't,
That's
you're- yeah.
Well, is that a realistic expectation that you can do that? Put those numbers in?
Of course.
Okay. I just know, I know things are very intense right now, yeah. So if anything changes, let us know and we can muddle through and figure out how to.
Just want to make sure you realize there are 2 pages for signatures. And
Oh, no. Can everyone make sure you sign 2 pieces of paper? I only signed 1.
Thanks, Sandy. Good
I
catch.
just saw it too quickly.
So I would love for you to do that presentation and to prepare it, but I can help with a written town report.
Oh, excellent. Okay. I'll send you the 2 examples that I got from Sandy today. And
Yeah, that would be good.
Anything
And
else I got?
Greg, if you can send me what you guys wrote,
Sure, the principal.
that would help. Yeah,
Sure.
Excellent.
So this is for the town warrant.
yeah.
So we have this
When's the due date for it, the written?
Thursday.
Okay. You're gonna send it to me tonight?
Yes. As soon as I go home, I'm sending everyone everything I have.
Okay.
All right. So if anyone has some other ideas, or we can entertain those later. All right. 7.0 consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 8.0, confirm next meeting dates. Our next regular board meeting is February 19th, 7 o'clock at CVU. The CSSU meeting is the same night at 5 o'clock, not 7, as listed on the sheet. All right, 9.0, director's comments. Any director's comments?
No.
Well, thank you for coming.